And I'm the sound, which is the enable to be you by our two sweet and immediately is the ability to bring by enemy. It's the new team.
Here we are. It's another Wednesday afternoon, and you are listening to Because Cannabis, the 19th best-rated cannabis podcast, according to freeflow.com. I think we're moving up in the rankings, though, Dustin. I don't know whenever that ranking came out. I don't know if it really was legit. I'm assuming not, but we're still taking it. Wayward Media still puts out. According to the latest ranking, though, I got to tell you, this month, if you are not paying attention to what Because Cannabis on Wayward Media is doing, the month of December, booming. We are growing like dank bud here, Dustin, between the Ohio issue 2, between our guests that we have had on, including today's guest in the big reveal of the 2023 strain of the year, according to leafly.com. Super excited to talk with our guest today to learn about that, to learn about genetics, to learn about a little bit about the marketing of the plant. Our episode 100, Dustin, that is coming up 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks from the day this show airs. Big guest coming up by far. It's going to be an exciting month. We are closing in on 100, Dustin, but we are here today on Because Cannabis every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m., every single Thursday with video on Spotify and anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. Dustin Cava, BC Wayman. Let's get this out of the way, Dustin. Are you excited to talk genetics? Yes or no?
You know I am. I'm excited to see the reveal today. I've been talking to, all of everybody in our inner circle, asking them, what do you think? And I've gotten a lot of different, suggestions. So I'm pretty stoked.
One of the things I want to talk with our guest today, super excited to have David Downs on from leafly.com to get the big 2023 strain of the year announcement out. One of the things I'm excited to talk about is cannabis buyers as a whole. I find, and maybe I'm projecting as a customer myself, as a patient myself, as a consumer of the plant myself, I find I tend to go with what I like when I find it, right? It's kind of, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, how we grow, the different genetics, the way that a Michigan grower versus a California grower versus Ohio medicinal market grower is going to have that same strain between, the products and the people that they use to create that plant. But a lot of times when consumers find something they like, it hits you in the feels. It gives you not dry eyes. Anytime a strain gives me dry eyes, it's right out of the Gold Leaf Diary. Check out Charles McElroy, CEO of Gold Leaf, and the cannabis diaries that you can buy in the previous episodes we've had out. Right out of the diary. As soon as you get dry eyes. Do you have a thing, Dustin, that as soon as you consume it, when it hits you, you're like, nope, AF, not having this strain anymore? Or is it all weed is good weed for life kind of thing?
I don't know, man. I don't think it's never this strain again. I think it's hard for me to give the brand, the grower, another chance with all their other products. And so I don't know, man. I'm really a loyal type of guy. I know you buy for price, but I really am loyal to guys I really like supporting.
That is interesting, right? And maybe that is something that ties into what we're here to talk about today. We have David Downs, not quite paying attention. That's what I love to do. Always love it when we can bring him in and they're doing something else. What's he writing on the paper? What's on the notes? Show us real quick. Notes of shit, science, facts, hashtag information on there. Welcome, David Downs from Leafly, a senior editor. Been covering cannabis for a long time, almost a decade and a half now. David, we're here to talk the 2023 strain of the year. We're here to talk a little bit about you and about the industry. But we were talking, David, right before we brought you in. You know, you are publishing and talking about, there's a lot of articles. If you go to leafly.com, you can find the links to everything we're talking about in the descriptions below. When you go to leafly.com, when you click on your name, when you go through all the articles, you are really about the new hotness, the fire emoji, as the kids call it. The dankity dank, as I'm about to hashtag right now. Make it happen. Dankity dank. There it is, David. Leafly.com. So do you still get excited about the new stuff? Do cannabis buyers, are they more resistant to newness? What is it like trying to be someone who's always talking about what's the hot strains, what's the cool genetics, what are the crossbreeding that's happening in an industry that IMO, maybe I'm off base, feels like when they find something they love, they don't tend to gravitate towards new? Or maybe I'm way off. You know more than I. What do you think?
We've got on mute. There we are.
There we go. I'm not on mute. Yo, you hear me? How am I coming through?
You sound
Perfect.
fantastic, David Downs.
We want new but different, BC. Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me, Dustin. You know, I gotta start with a lot of thanks for Leafly Strain of the Year 2023. And but to answer your question, I got a front row seat to like the history of this new golden age in cannabis genetics. And we are very stoked. We are very juiced. We are waking up every day, ready to get at it. And there's a ton of work to do. So we're really tired a lot. But yeah, and to like center this in thanks, we got to thank the weed. Thank you, Strain of the Year permanent marker. We got to thank the smokers and readers, the Leafly Nation, 40 million monthly smokers strong.
That's awesome.
We got to thank the growers and nurseries, the thousands that make all the plants and ran all the risk, the breeders and selectors, but also the people that move the stuff and the support it, like in the TC culture and the labs and the genetics and like the stores and the budtenders. The glass that I smoke it out of and the hemp wick I light it with.
Thank you. Like, you're the first fucking person to be like, glass is important.
Now the kids love the blunts these days, man. They do.
And then, you know, expanding concentric circles of rings of thanks, like my team at Leafly, the creative people, the product people, the sales people, the senior people that give us space to do this, like Yogo, the CEO, and the public that holds Leafly shares. That all needs to be like thanked right off the bat. And so thank you. That's who's with us. That's who's riding in this moment. And yeah, we deal with the people wanting one thing in the center of the bell curve and them getting that and really devotion to the people. And then you can be intentional with it by expanding their horizons and taking them to the next thing. With the strains of harvest, we hear a lot about the Hollywood blockbuster phenomenon where you want the same but different. You want to conjure the same feeling but give people something new. And that's going to win in a marketplace where you do have to like make money. You have to like make plus $1 whatever you spent. And the new Mission Impossible was good. It was the same but different, man. I don't know how Ethan Hunt gets out of all those things or why they trust him or like how that all's still going. But we have our own Mission Impossibles with these strains of the years, and they take us all over the world and in planes, trains, and automobiles, and makes all kind of characters and really try to push the boundaries and take some risks too, to like also give people what they want, you know, and respect what they like, you know. We are here to serve them. I wake up with two goals. One is to like serve the reader, and the second one is to stay close to the plant. And I figure we do those things, it should be fine. And if it was not fine, then at least we did those things. And it has been going fine for 14 years now. And there's so much more to dive into. And so it's still day one. So we're stoked.
Shit. What? you talked about, traveling the globe in search of this strain, in search of having that number one, having that this is it. There are some honorable mentions, but this is it. And I'm curious at what that process is actually like. Is it just, a bunch of you guys just traveling it's smoking at the hostels, or are you guys, like sending it out for testing, kind of diving really, just trying to understand it at its core. And I'm also secondary, we'll just go there first and then we'll talk again.
I want to summarize it as like chat GPT, like computers cannot do this. Like two big talking points. There's like one, Leafly Strain of the Year is the fastest growing new strain on Leafly menus. And so we got 3,000 menus. We get to see how strains change over time. We get to see their life cycle and how they move across the country. If you're a data nerd, it's like, it's heaven. And so it jumped up 59x year over year between like last August and November. And when we go like freeze, enhance, when we see stuff like that. And very few things fit that bill in terms of being new. Just to unpack fastest growing new strain. Like we have it on menus. It's new. It came out in 2022. It is this like ballad cultivar. And, since 2012, Leafly has been humanity's weed discovery engine. And this is a way to illustrate the power of that engine because in addition to doing that, we had the US Budtenders Choice Awards this year for the first time, where we tempted budtenders with $1,000 checks, like 3 of them, to give us their favorite strain in their state and their favorite flower brand. We just wanted to find out what was going on. There's all these 24 legal markets and they're siloed. And we know budtenders need money and they love weed and know what's good. And so we just asked them straight up, like, favorite strain of the year in your state and favorite brand. And we got over 900 responses, which is just like, wow. Yeah. Because again, we have those millions of the Leafly Nation coming every month to look at strains and then put it in the basket and get on with their life. We could reach out to them and get this data set. That's this great cross-section. And again, this strain was the most frequently mentioned new strain by budtenders across the country in this data set. I honestly was caping for a different strain, and the Budtenders Choice Awards really brought into focus like, wow, I saw variability in a runner-up, but budtenders really did, versus the consistency of them liking permanent marker, helped. We saw it become a top 200 strain in traffic after being in like the 2,900s the year before. And then that's just the data side. The other side of the process is the human side. And I know the first time I smoked permanent marker, I fucking thought it was dope. It's this sickly sweet synthetic marker fume flavor that is like hyper refined gelato. Like if gelato is gas or OG is gas, like, okay, but you can refine petroleum into higher order solvents and petroleum products. And that's what Seed Junky selected for here. And so when you Google like what's in a permanent marker, you get these weird ass molecules like xylene and toluene and urethane resin and acetone people mention. You're like, yeah, that's it. Like take out a fucking Sharpie and smell it. You're not supposed to, don't do that too often, but you can smell this weed now. And for people that like that gas, like we're like, all right, well, I like fucking ISO, like let's take it to the next level. And it was built great. And then we saw tons of great growers grow it, like Cam here in California, LA Family Farms. Doja Pack has it on their label. In Washington, we have Taurus and Scored and Freddy Fuego. Preferred Gardens took it all the way to Florida, and Seed Junky has it in Michigan and California and New Mexico. And that's just permanent marker, not its crosses. We take that kind of stuff. When I was in Barcelona in March, they were selling 30 euro grams of permanent marker from California on the Cali weed menu at the Dank of England private weed club. When I was in Humboldt County, I was walking through the redwoods smoking joints with Matt Jackson, one of my glass writers, and Daniel Hendricks from Hendrick Nursery, and he was giving permanent marker its props on the nursery side of things. You know, I'm asking him what would offend you, what wouldn't offend you about an end of the year choice. He's just feeling people out. And when I was in New York at the Astor Club, smoking with Ben on the couch, we were talking about strains, you know, and breeders. He just totally was also like, felt that like Seed Junky stood on a layer above a lot of people that were more derivative, and they really were like this fountainhead. And we take all that info back and we run it by our teammates and run it up the flagpole. And we also make sure that the breeder is amenable to coverage. A lot of breeders are still coming out of the woodwork or in transit, and they're like, not this year, not right now. And we want to be intentional because we're about to strap a rocket pack onto a strain and a breeder when we do this. And it's like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. You can't observe something without changing it. So how do you want to change it? What's the intention here? And our intention, again, is to be part of a virtuous cycle where we elevate something that's great and getting greater and celebrate it and give it its flowers in the moment, and give cannabis users what like music users have with like Pitchfork's record of the year, Rolling Stones record of the year, Grammys artist of the year, or design people have with like Pantone's color of the year, or word people have with like Merriam-Webster's word of the year. You know, create, like, land on something that embodies the year, helps us pass the time, helps us make sense of what's going on when there's 200 strains on a menu and this one's new and you're like, why is it there? And you're like, well, because it's freaking happening, man. You know,
hit the new hotness right now.
Yeah.
In that.
And so, like, to bring it back to the top, like ChatGPT has data that's old and it can crawl the data for new stuff, but it can't smoke weed. It can't go to events. It can't see the LA Family Flowers booth at Jimmy Devine and Chronic Culture's Transbay Challenge 5 finals near LAX Airport in Venice Beach and see their bag and smell it and be like, yeah, you know, and like, I can compare it to like a runner up and there's other ones. And for me, 14 years on the beat, and say like, this is it. This is happening. We'll stand by this and we'll listen to anybody's other suggestions and like take them in and like consider them. But I don't know that anybody has the perch we have over the data and the industry, and to like come to this spot.
You guys really are perfectly positioned with that data. It's, you know, I picture the budtenders, and the budtenders are very isolated and siloed, and the cultivators are very isolated and siloed, and you work your way down down the chain, and you guys are able to get a real reading from all sides and really be able to scrape that data and analyze it, and really shopping data, cart data, you know, you guys are perfectly suited to make this claim. And so I really respect that placement within the industry and the necessity of that in the industry.
I like the combination of data and gut, right? And you talked about the data, like ChatGTP, if we're going to keep going down this deep metaphor, can crunch numbers. It can find the different numbers that it's trying to find and probably give you, based off this information, David, like, we think this is the best selling. But being able to combine all that data with the gut instinct, with the smokability, with that kind of aspect, really is what Dustin, I think, alludes to, that makes Leafly.com kind of poised to be in that spot, which is kind of interesting, right? A lot of smokers, a lot of consumers, they know what they like, they know what their friends smoke, they have those things. But when you combine it with this information of, oh, this strain, this particular thing is spreading across, and now we're seeing it in Arizona dispensaries, and now we're seeing it in Illinois dispensaries, literally watching it kind of, I would imagine, spread across like a virus, like the best kind of virus ever. Like,
it's that secondary point of
exactly what's going on.
Your decision here makes a dramatic impact for that strain across the
great
country.
Power, great responsibility kind of shit.
Yeah. And you made a really good comment or thought about that idea of, if something was picked and the breeder isn't able to sustain the buzz, sustain a 60x increase on eyes on their product or want for it, that it kind of almost null and voids their ability to make it across the country in any certain way, or really shine through as that strain of the year, essentially, you know? So I never thought of it in that way. I always kind of thought of it like, I don't know. At first, I thought of it like, oh, look at how much bigger this is, and this, you know, and I like the way you guys are thinking about this. It really, really breeds a huge amount of depth into the thought process that goes behind choosing something like this.
Thanks. Yeah. It's a different era with all this, you know, it's a $60 billion all up retail industry, if you include the traditional market and the new market. And it's bifurcated in these 24 states, but it's also international. And if you want to win strain of the year now, the bar is like, you got to be pretty new. Like, we tried to do dos and people weren't having old strains. And someone said, like, what about lemon cherry gelato? Well, like, Jimmy Devine reported in High Times and like talked to Backpack Boys, like, lemon cherry gelato is a gelato 33 bag seed from 2016, you know, and like, it's having a great year. It's up there with gelato now because it's gelato. And so, or runs, and bless it, go with God, you know. We wanted to highlight something that had more work in it, a lot more work. And when you look at the cross, this idea of a Biscotti S1 times a Sherbert BX1, just to make a intermediate strain that you hit to your Jealousy F2. Those guys have a big ass facility and a lot of room to play around. They're like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory. And I've been all over the country. I see a lot of grows. I see a lot of breeding areas, and I see people in cramped spaces, and they're not in Northridge in like a former rocket factory. You know, Amsterdam breeders are in closets, and New York breeders can't, you know, and even San Francisco breeders can get some like space in the industrial area, but they're just in a good spot to be actually like moving forward. So it's like a different technology at that point, the way it grows and the way it finishes and can survive a dry and a cure, or the way it hashes. I tried to make the point that, like, you know, this is the difference between like an Acura and a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. Like, someone's putting in the work, you know, and we're looking for that, you know, amaze us. And that's like step one. And then step two is you really do need ambitious logistics and distribution. And three is like a global marketing like genius. And so Seed Junky could make all those cuts, and they have a distributor, and you know, and then their marketer was Doja Pack Ryan, who doesn't sleep, and apparently, and has 1 million frequent flyer miles, and is just like in every major city with the heat from, you know, LA and Cali, really. And Seed Junky gives all credit to Ryan for picking up which was essentially already had been marketed as Adios Motherfucker by Cookies and Gunpowder by Mints, and going, no, this is permanent marker, and just running with it like a running back just down the field. And Ryan came to Seed Junky and said, let's do like a clone launch. And that's when those guys took off, because those clones were $1,000 and people flew in from all over the world. I think there was like 350 of them or something, but everyone took that clone home and like started a brand or like put it in their arsenal. And so that the philosophy of giving something out is now mandatory if you want to be number one. Back in the day, you could sell an $8,000 pound of your cut of sour diesel and hoard it and maybe license it to a few homies and pray one of the trimmers didn't run off with a cut. So I hear. But nowadays, to go thermonuclear, you want to have something great and get it into people's hands and make sure they know about it. And so all those things have to happen, and then it has to be grown and it has to be good. And budtenders have to pick it up. And that's not every strain. We have 6,000 strains in the database. We're adding 1,000 this year. And that's just the top 50 breeders doing 20 strains. And there's more than that going on. Not everyone's going to get a push like that. There's not every river is going to be the Nile, Not every
No, it's
pop
pretty
star is gonna be
incredible.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible when it happens. I'm going to do this. Let's go. We're going to pop this up. You can find this link right now in the description. You can go to Leafly. You can find the announcement. Permanent marker, strain of the year. Some of the highlights I think, we're looking at here. You already talked about this a little bit when you talked about how the sales increase, how it went, almost 60 times its amount of stores that it went in just a singular year, right? Which is pretty incredible. It's a cross of last year's, the 2022 strain Jealousy, also by Seed Junky, as we mentioned, cross between Jealousy, Biscotti, and Sherbert. You do some great information. This article written by David Downs, the link is in the description, really digging into the strain, talking about the genetics, talking about the future.
Yeah.
Like what's going to happen with some of these crosses when it gets into other breeders' hand, and then you're going to start to see all these different types of genetics come out of it, some of the different options you listed down below. You talk a lot about Seed Junkies, which is fantastic in there in the article for that. But I really like that, like thinking about some of the future that this is going to bring. Is that a big market? And similar to if you get like a horse, right? You get like a horse and it's like just a purebred and you can sell off that sperm for lots of money. Is the business of genetics, you think, a highly profitable business, or is it only like the select few that can really, like a Doja Pack Ryan, can really put it out there, something that Seed Junkies, or is it for a lot of entrepreneurs? We've been speaking a lot with Andrew D'Angelo. We have this whole entrepreneur series with him. They always want to get into growing, and they're going to come up with this new strain that no one's ever smoked. But it feels like the business of genetics is highly competitive, and you really got to bust ass to excel. Let's talk a little bit about that. Seed Junkies, how they're doing it, and then what's this business really like, in your opinion, as someone who's always talking to geneticists and growers and testers?
Yeah, there's a lot of seed companies. It's a real golden era for seeds. The DEA, I said, seeds are basically bird seed until you pop them and flower them, and there's THC involved. It's hemp. And for a long time, Europe ran the seed game, but now we've really taken the baton from them because we had a lot of the genetic shit work. We would send our stuff over there to get replicated in seed form. Now you don't need to do that as much. I have seeds. If anyone wants some seeds, I got a bunch of new crosses this year. My seed, just for fun seed company is called Portal Genetics, like a portal.
And it's legal, right, to mail seeds now because they're not considered THC by the. Yeah,
I'm going to stick them on this peer-to-peer seed distribution website called Strainly. This guy got at me from Strainly, and we're kind of mourning right now. It's December, and we usually go to the biggest seed sale on the planet at Emerald Cup. And before it was the Emerald Cup Awards, and then it was Emerald Cup Harvest, but it's not happening this December, and that's sad because it used to be like an entire cow barn at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds, just filled with seed vendors, just thronged like ants with heads and whoops from all over the world, and you could see where the crowds were and where the hype was, and $500 packs, $1,000 clones. Seed Junky dropped Cap Junky and Permanent Marker as clones at that. It was a big point. So all of which to say is there's a lot of hype around seed, and there's more seeds than ever, and their quality control is arguably worse than ever. There's high highs and low lows.
That's the rub of it, right? I feel like you getting going, the QC part of it.
Times, worst of times. I'm definitely going to tell people these are not tested. I think if you give people all the data, these are not tested for homogeneity, stability, anything. I'm just fucking around, and they're $10 a pack or whatever. I just want to spread my joy, which included, I crossed everything to my favorite sativa hybrid citrus strain from Humboldt Seed Co. It's called Squirt. It's it's a Tangy project, and people hate Tangy, and I love that people hate it. I've just always been an unorthodox person because everyone I grew Squirt for fucking loved it because it smells exactly like the soda Squirt, and you can smoke it all day, and you smell it on your hands and your fingers. You're the weird guy in Target being
I think that's amazing. I tend to prefer, and I know a lot of customers do too, those sweeter terpenes, the cakes, the citrusy ones you talked about, more so even than the gassy. I know Dustin. Sometimes you like that dank gas, but I get it. It's like a diet. I like the little fun taste.
Yeah. And so I had a bunch of Squirt femmes that I popped that were laying around that didn't go in that garden, and so I put them to a bunch of males that were from packs that I popped this year for females that were going in the garden. So I Squirt to root beer freeze and Purus Indica and double OG Chem. There's going to be some fun ass squirt regs on strain from Portal Genetics. And I know that would make JB at Seed Junky fucking juiced, because you got to set the intention around this, which is like, we love weed. We love collecting seeds. We love smoking weed. We love exploring the flavors and the highs. And now we're in service of the plant, like botany of the desire, micropollen style. We're just workers for the weed now. And part of that is popping packs and hunting and growing for flower and making seeds and making pollen and making crosses. I talked to JB and he told people to like pop his packs. There's better stuff than permanent marker in the back cross packs that he put out. And on seedjunkygenetics.com now, stuff that yields better, is easier to grow. There's more in it. There's more variety in it than what he put out, the clone that we're celebrating. And he's over there smelling 40 to 50 new phenotypes a week. And they're doing chemotyping in terms of like terpenes, but they're also doing genotyping in terms of genes. So they have a huge library of like active moms and more probably in TC and all this data, but that's not the end all be all, because we're learning, and you're going to see me write about this a lot in 2024, that like, we don't know what we don't know. And so we were learning about THC, we're like, we found it. And then we learned about terpenes, we're like, we found it. And now we're learning about other stuff and we're like, we found it. And I'm like, I'm ready to say like, you didn't find it. Like, Seed Junky found it. You can find it, because the nose knows. The nose is millions of years old, and it's kept us alive, kept us from harm and near loved things for that long. It's our oldest memory sense. I can walk into a childhood basement with my eyes closed in Chicago, and I would know exactly where I am. And so he's smelling and smoking, and they have like running Apple Notes documents where they're both in bed late at night, like texting note effects to each other, you know, or they see the updates come in. Someone's in the note effects document. The share, you know, how you can have like Apple Notes, you can have a
share between each other. Yeah.
So that's Seed Junky in West. They've been doing it since the medical marijuana era, and that's why. And their big thing now is they're going direct to consumer with their genetics, very much of the times. They want everybody to be a test bed. They want to help you win. They want to learn from you too. That's how they said they got Wedding Cake, is they learn from people running it and doing well with it, because it has to work in different environments. Ideally, you know, the more the merrier. Permanent marker doesn't really work outside, they've learned. So people should know that and not waste their time and money trying to grow like a really dense, sticky bud that might mold if they can't really lock in their environment. Yeah. And you know, on the business side, it's the Wild West. It seems better than ever if you have good stuff, but harder than ever if you're a consumer to see what's good. I'm going to go to the Eagle Clash seed swaggle run by Masonic, and there's going to be tons of great seeds there. We're going to have our 2024 best seeds and clones to grow out in January, and we'll be looking for all these like subspecializations now. I'm looking for an early finisher that doesn't mold, because I am outside in Sebastopol and I got hammered this year. Like, so sad. But there's obviously people want hashers. People want stuff that works in dry altitude climates. People need stuff for humidity in Florida now. So, and the autos are big, and there's just so much to do on the seed side, that we want to just, if we're staying close to the plant, it doesn't get closer than the seeds and the breeders and the genetics in these drops. In 2023, we started doing Strain News Weekly, where we tried to like keep pace with the drops and turn it into like a newslettery thing. Like if everybody's doing all the like boring regulatory turns of the screw, I just want to hear about all the drops, you know? Yeah. So we're going to keep that going and get an advertiser for it in 2024, because that's the like headwaters of the Nile. That's like putting up a little scout booth right there at the headwaters.
Yeah, ahead of it. Well, you know, it's interesting, David.
go ahead.
You've been doing this. Like, you've been doing cannabis media, and clearly, we're talking with David Downs, senior editor at Leafly. Like, you've been doing since 2009, talking about cannabis all the way back in the San Francisco Chronicle. It started other websites in cannabis.
Yeah.
And so you've seen cannabis media like evolve, right? You're on a podcast right now because cannabis every Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. on YouTube. You're watching right now, like people talk about cannabis, something that 2009, all these people on these YouTube podcasts clearly were the 19th best. There's 18 not quite better than us, but got better advertisers, right? Up there doing that thing. And so what do you think, and what have you seen this industry? Is it going to keep getting more specific? Are we going to be more like top level news? Do you think we're going to have this thing where people get excited about seed drops, like a shoe drop, like the sneakers app, and they're all excited for that type of stuff? Are we going to just become, as more states legal? Dustin and I sit in Ohio, just became the 24 states legalized, but with problems clearly moving forward. So is this industry going to get, as a media, do you think more specific genres become interesting, or do you think it just becomes broader in such? Like, you've watched it go 15 years. What do you think the next 4 or 5 years, as it continues, will probably push federal legality within that time? What do you think cannabis media, information gathering, research is going to be like?
God, it's such a big question. And I really want to hold space for everyone who's had a frustrating year in media and recent years in media, man. It's brutal. Media has always been brutal. I started back writing for print about like, hold on one sec.
Got the dog going in there, David.
Yeah, I got my guard dog. My
It's happening. You got weed and seeds in there. You need a guard dog to get it going in there.
I'm sure you get a lot of these when you do.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
Sometimes it happens. We just roll with it, right? That's the, we're all cannabis.
Yeah, we're
consumers.
human
We roll
beings.
with
We have a dog. I have a cute brown chocolate lab.
Good dog.
Barking for the dogs of media because it's rough out there.
It's
Hey,
right.
Lola, how's media? She says, rough.
Rough. It's rough. Oh, dad. If you would have had dad jokes on your bingo card during the 2023 Strain of the Year announcement from Leafly.com with David Downs.
I got two of them, man. I got a 7 and a 10-year-old boy, and so that gene is turned on.
I got 4. Dustin's got like 2 or 3. I don't know how many. I can't keep track.
Better. You're in Ohio.
Yeah.
You're gonna keep the.
I got nothing else to do. It's cold here. Yeah, it's cold. It's rainy. It's cold. We just got legal weed. All right.
Yeah. So I wanted to hold space for everyone who's having a frustrating time. I'm having a frustrating time too for them. But I've been on the beat since like I was a print music writer. I was like, that's what I'll do when I get out of college, UC Santa Barbara, English major. I will be the next Lester Bangs or whatever, like 30 years late. And I write about tech too, for like Wired. And so I've written for Print, Wired, and Print Rolling Stone back in the day. And I watched print media get exploded. Just freaking glass from orbit, just like Akira, and music industry in general, the recorded music industry, same thing. Shot number 2.
Yeah, it's so different.
Like glass. So my entire life I've spent on like a lava flow, just hopping from like boulder to boulder, like fucking one of the little hobbits at the end, waiting for an eagle. But the eagle's not coming, man. It's just about the ride. I'm here to tell you, there is no eagles. They should have came. They would have came by now. Yeah, and so cannabis media has had a rough go of it as like stocks went up and down and investment comes up and down. But I land on the note that there's like, if you study that invention of the news, there's some really good books on it, like the invention of the news. There's an internal need for information, like structured information, if we're being really abstract, like communications, marketing communications, but also like business intelligence and consumer entertainment intelligence, reader service journalism. And so I'm really excited because that's never going away. And there's a fuck ton of like cannabis data to structure and intelligence to like package and for like businesses and consumers. If Leafly is this humankind's cannabis discovery engine, you know, we have a just job of like outputting some of the stuff that's in it. And for me, that's like, that manifests itself as like putting strains in the strain database every day.
Yes.
Like this company started because someone loved weed so much, they opened up a stupid spreadsheet and started
and hand entered
spreadsheeting.
each.
You know you're in the shit when you're spreadsheeting your weed. Like shout out Sky and Science, the other guy. And so we got to put the weed in the spreadsheet every day. And that's journalism. Like you have to pick up the phone and call the breeder and the grower and be like, what is this? And they can be like, it is this, but so-and-so says this, and you got to call so-and-so sometimes.
So then what do you
what
feel about
happened?
Conventions like MJ BizCon and stuff like that? Where do you see that those, where a convention like that falls in place in the industry with, say, your job to talk to more of the consumer level, the non-business?
Or does it become something like Cannabis, or like the San Diego Comic-Con, which started as cool and underground and hip, and now it's just all commercialized? The MJ BizCon is becoming more and more MSO. So it's interesting, like, how do you find your role and the future of these trade shows as they become more commercialized and the legacy?
I love it. I
Shoved
think
to a
everyone should go and drink and mingle and have a good vibe in New York or like Vegas and give them their money and check out the brands. I haven't seen exactly like any big news stories out of MJ BizCon. We're really laser focused on strains and products and reader service for our consumers. And it's like wide open. Like we're zooming in on the cannabis. It's becoming a keyhole. And when you look through the keyhole, there's a whole world in there that no one's writing about. And my thesis is that there's a universe in every nug. People should be winning Pulitzer Prizes for weed criticism. And maybe we'll do that for first at Leafly. So, like there's a LA Times car driver that won a Pulitzer for writing about it, like a car review, because it was transcendent and you felt like you were with someone smart who was taking you on a journey and you were putting pieces together in your life. We can do that. We can better pace what's happening on the genetics front and the stores front and the retail experience front. For sure, weed's getting to be like clout culture and supreme culture. And you have to recognize that we're social animals and what you smoke is part of your rank, whether you want that to be a thing or not. You can set it aside, but other people are participating in that, and they participated in any number of ways. And so weed's not excluded from that. All these states are going to have to flip on. We're going to have to figure out who grows the good shit in all of them. And it's going to change quarter to quarter because of seasonality and because it's a plant, it's alive, it's changing. No one can bottle it forever. And so again, like the universe gave Leafly this job, structure the world's cannabis data. And you're lucky if the universe ever gives you a job, And so we're just like, and some people are like, oh, all these requests for new strains and people fighting over what something is. And it's so confusing. And I'm like, let's go, baby. Like we got work, and it's journalistic. It's a first draft of history, and it's a $60 billion industry. So it's more important than a lot of other things that are covered far more breathlessly. So to be factual and timely and topical at a high quality, like it's a great like challenge and a great sort of sandbox to be playing in, and that's, and I think other people can draw lessons for whatever sector they're in from that, about being factual, about serving the reader, about not taking their eyes off the plant as much. There's a weird thing. I've been writing about weed for 14 years and this tendency to like follow it to some weird tangent. Like, when you're smoking and you're like, well, how do we end up talking about this? Versus what we're seeing with Strain of the Year in terms of the introduction of 1,000 strains this year, the mass production of some of them, the successful mass marketing of some of them, the successful uptake of them, and the cultural change that they create, and like how they grow and how they taste and feel say about the reader in America. I want to read more people that make me jealous that they didn't put it in Leafly,
Dude, you embody so much passion. I don't know, man. I appreciate the way you look at your job, the way you look at the work you do. I don't know. You've opened my eyes in a lot of ways to just, sometimes
It's interesting. Let's break the fourth wall here. We're going to break the fourth wall. We're wrapping up here with David Downs, a senior editor of Leafly. I told Dustin that we're getting you on the show. And Dustin is a bit curmudgeonly when it comes to his cannabis and his newfound cultivators and the genetics, man. He's got, we can save you the story. He's got people that grow. His family's growing up in Michigan. They genetics in the family.
Shout out Michigan.
And out Daniel Travante. You can find his company on there. What do we got here?
So this is some Sherb cake, just to keep it centered. This is like a permanent marker cross to Sherb. And I think it's a really good example of like where we're at. Cool packaging, gotta love Sherb, but to like have it be more gassy and coming off permanent marker makes sense. I think we're all ready to see things that are different than gelato.
Yeah,
the center of the bell curve. And stay tuned in 2024 in January. We're going to do New Year terps and really start exploring the 1, 2, 3, 4 standard deviations away from the mean for the center of that bell curve. But this shit is above the bell curve. Like if it's doing this, it's up here, like we make an exception, and that's how I wanted to.
It's good. I'm glad you came on. As I was saying, you kind of changed Dustin's opinion. He gets a little like too much marketing, too much newness on there. And so I think having you kind of really, in talking with David Downs, senior editor at Leafly.com, you can find the links to Permanent Marker, the announcement for Strain of the Year 2023, a lot of David's articles, Seed Junkies, and more in the description below. It can be a bit much sometimes, and you don't know where this line between marketing and science and passion and where it all fits. So as we kind of wrap up, David, let's talk a little bit kind of about the future. We talked a little bit about media, but what in this industry, outside of genetics, we got to cut you off from your love. And so let's go outside of what they're doing. Maybe it's a new way to consume. Maybe it's something new about the industry. Maybe it's the rise of consumption cafes. What about this industry, say that's going to happen in the next few years, really outside of breeding, has you just like fired up, fucking and ready to go and excited to try this new thing that they've taken and done with this plant?
Yeah. I try to like frame the answer to that around like what my readers are looking for next. And I just got back from New York. It's still day one over there. They've been going for 2.5 years, fumbling the ball, just like a blooper video. But New York's about to pop off. They're about to do all their regular licenses. They ran out of ways to fumble the ball, Yep. And my analogy is like a rocket on the launch pad, fully gassed up with kerosene, and it's like smoking, it's got the white waves coming off of it. Is that liquid oxygen? They do it to keep it cool or something. Mm-hmm. But someone just needs to walk up and like hit the button and like light the thing. Because they got 2 million smokers right there in the metro area. And they took the mantle for 420 with Washington Square Park. They have no chill. They go so hard out there. And their indoors about to turn on. Before they only had hemp farmers and tomato farmers, and then outdoor farmers and mixed light farmers growing weed. So, and then the bodegas just kind of ran wild. So there was rapacity at the MSO side and at the sort of bodega side. And there was a lot of legacy, high quality people caught in the middle being like, whoa. But I saw AJ Sour Diesel from AJ, Asshole Joe, the like a 90s promulgator of sour diesel. And so that's like a classic for you, Dustin, but it's a modern story, and the story of sour diesel and what it is about New Yorkers that makes them smoke this strain, that things that make them bench press a Subway. And like, we changed it in the database that it's a hybrid. AJ is coming to market with Flower House in January. There is these undercurrents of stories about he gave them a bunch of clones. And so now you're going to have like a bunch of Flower House mixed light in stores for legal people to buy. And there's these new grower showcases where it'll be at. There is all these really high end like co-work spaces, like private lounges. So you're like on the 14th floor in Chelsea, looking out the window at One World Trade Center, like rolling a blunt and like talking to a German events marketer and weed, and like it's New York, baby. Like, it's the center of the fucking universe.
That is
There's
interesting,
energy, and the subway runs 24 hours a day, and the food's fucking great. And yes, it is super duper expensive. You can expect to pay double for everything. But pot's actually, you can get it for West Coast prices if you know somebody. And then the East Coast prices are lower than a bottle of water would be at your hotel lobby. You pay double everything. Like, I paid $12 for a Modelo in my hotel lobby. And you're like, this is a $4 beer, but it's 300% higher. So like a $50 eighth isn't $150 at Union Square Travel Agency. It's $70. And people are like, bah, 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 bah. And you're like, it's Manhattan, baby. Like, after you do this, you can go watch KRS-One give a hip hop history lesson down the street, because it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop, which largely happened there. And so to see New York, unmess itself and unfurl, I think next year, and the experiences you'll be able to get. I went to the THC Museum, 5 floors of like interactive stuff, like in 2009, like the Hemp Museum in Oakland was busted. Like, respect to them, like they had some cases, but New Yorkers do it at a whole different level. And then like it's 24 states, but Florida's up next. We have all of this to learn about some of these new states, like Maine's popping off, Vermont's popping off. We have to like get Ohio, like get some ground underneath our Ohio readers.
Let's hope so. We're hoping so. It's been a tough road. We're going to have a few decisions here coming up this month that are going to really make or break. The program's going. The details, though, are going to be hotly contested and how it gets up and going. So we'll see how that turns out here shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just juiced for all of it, man. Like, again, my hardest job is to wake up and remember that it's day one for most people. They come up to me and they're like, hey, I need weed for sleep. Do you recommend a tincture? And they're like a Russian emigre in their 70s. And you're like, yeah, lady, where are you? I'm in Boston. Okay. So that's one person. And then my brother, so to speak, texted me today. He's like, I made my first temple ball. And he shows me like a fucking, he's out there in the desert hashing shit out. It doesn't dry for shit for flour, but you can make bomb hash in the desert. Shocker. It's like really dry and cold. And so I did that like harvest or the hash book with Ed Rosenthal in 2014, Beyond Buds. And so to like see his first temple ball was super cool.
I love Ed. He is just so amazing to be around. We got to see him at OCHBS here in Cleveland not too long ago. And he is just a wealth of information.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for the next thing we can build to solve readers' problems and like stoke them out better on the weed universe,
Well, let's hope that is our goal here as well to Because Cannabis Podcast. We've been talking with David Downs from Leafly.com. You can find some links in the description below. You're going to have the announcement of Permanent Marker, the 2023 strain of the year from Leafly.com. We've talked a lot about how they got there. Excited to get our hands and our mouth on that. You also got some great articles about where to buy it. You talk about the genealogy of the plant. So not only do you have the announcement, you got some follow-up articles right now on Leafly.com. You can see the links in the description of what David's doing. David, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Really showcasing your passion and knowledge, not just about the industry, but really about the plant itself and the lineage and the genetics, and helping simpletons like Dustin and I kind of. So, it's been pretty fantastic having you on the show. We appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again in the near future. And so we appreciate you.
Thank you, BC. Thank you, Dustin. Thanks everyone who made it possible. Talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely. All right, Dustin, that is this show is in the books. That's Because Cannabis, produced by Wayward Media every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. on YouTube. Thursdays with video on Spotify and anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. Be sure to check out some of the great content we have on our channel. Give us a subscription. We have the Budding Minds Entrepreneurial Series, Episode 2 launching very soon with Andrew D'Angelo. Episode 3 coming in January. 90 minutes of consultation advice from Andrew D'Angelo himself, exclusively available on Because Cannabis Podcast, Wayward Media. Lots of great guests as well coming up throughout the year. Thank you for joining us. Dustin, thank you for joining me for another fantastic episode talking with David Downs. Heck yeah, we're going to get some of that.
Over it.
Hopefully soon. We'll get some of that. We'll smoke some. We'll tell you about it soon, I hope. All right, Dustin, take care, everyone. We'll see you guys
Later, brother.
I